The Life of Tatsumi from Akame Ga Kill. Tatsumi is a young fighter who set out along with his two childhood friends to make a name for himself, earning money for his village. Tatsumi is a kind-hearted person who wants everyone to live happily, but has no problem with becoming violent if his friends or his ideals are threatened. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed, so if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you're subscribed. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. Tatsumi spent his whole childhood in a small village, where he became close friends with Sayo and Ieyasu. It appears that he was well respected in his village, as the elder gave him a unique idol of their god. Tatsumi also trained under a retired soldier, learning the art of swordsmanship, hand-to-hand combat, and blacksmithing. After Tatsumi, Sayo, and Ieyasu set off on their journey, they became separated when attacked by bandits, leaving Tatsumi alone. In the opening chapter of the story, Tatsumi is first revealed fighting an earth dragon. Using his skills in combat, he defeats the beast with ease. Later, he enters one of the Empire's cities, where he meets a young lady who offers him military connections in exchange for money, conning him out of all his savings. In the streets, he's invited by a wealthy girl named Arya to stay at her house while he learned about the state of the Empire, the corrupted Prime Minister who's the core of all corruption, and about the assassination organization Night Raid, from one of the guards of that house while staying there. Later, the mansion is attacked by Night Raid itself, witnessing their strength where they easily dispose of the guards. Tatsumi decides to find and protect Arya instead. Tatsumi then manages to catch up with Arya, who's about to hide in her storehouse, with Akame arriving to kill Arya and her guard, easily disposing of the latter. Tatsumi, determined to protect Arya, decides to fight Akame, and after a struggle and almost being killed, the girl who conned Tatsumi out of his money shows up and is revealed to be a member of Night Raid herself, interrupting the fight between Tatsumi and Akame, stopping Akame from killing Tatsumi. The girl proceeds to reveal the true nature of the household, with Tatsumi looking on in horror, shocked and disgusted when he realized that Sayo was among the victims. Being in a state of mind where Tatsumi was no longer knowing what was right or wrong, Ieyasu, who was captured as well, reveals that Arya was the person who tortured Sayo to death. Arya then proceeds to reveal her true nature as she states her detest for Sayo, further disgusting Tatsumi and those around. Knowing the truth and no longer in doubt, Tatsumi stops Akame from slaying Arya, as he proceeds to dispose of Arya himself out of pure anger and hatred for her actions towards his friends. Tatsumi is then forced to see Ieyasu succumb to the Labora disease, leaving Tatsumi devastated over the loss of his two closest friends. Leone, the Night Raid member who conned Tatsumi out of his money, impressed by his potential, officially invites him to join their group of assassins. Tatsumi reluctantly leaves with the group, being carried off by them, and they head back to the hideout. Still devastated over the death of his childhood friends, Tatsumi was hesitant to accept Leone's offer to join at first. Leone shows him around the hideout and introduces him to the other members of Night Raid. Akame, Bulat, Shiel, Mine, Lubbock. Najenda assures him that they will not kill him should he refuse, but tells him that he would not be allowed to leave, and that he'd be able to work for Night Raid as a laborer, earning money to send back to his village should he wish. She explains Night Raid's purpose and goals, and Tatsumi finally accepts the offer to join the Assassin's Guild. He's first paired up with Akame to be trained by her and also to share her duties as well, which is cooking. While working with her, the two bond as they learn more about each other. Soon, he is given his first official mission to assassinate Ogre the Demon when Leone and Akame deal with a corrupt merchant named Gamal. Tatsumi deceives Ogre and lures him to an abandoned alley, where he tells him he wants to join the Imperial Guard. But once Ogre turns his back on Tatsumi, he attacks. During the fight, Ogre threatens to kill the client who hired Night Raid, as well as the rest of her family in revenge. An angry Tatsumi is then able to overpower Ogre and ultimately kill the corrupted Imperial. Afterwards, he states that he didn't take any wounds at all. Upon returning to the hideout, Akame promptly strips him to see if he was lying to save his pride, and is greatly relieved when she found that he was not lying, explaining that she's lost many friends from poison because they didn't report their wounds. He is next put under Mine, who pulls rank over him the whole time he's paired with her. He learns more about the Empire and the other Night Raid members and begins to form a friendship with her, although she still often teases him. He remains paired with her as they go on their next mission, to kill a relative of the Prime Minister, Ayokal. While Mine kills Ayokal with one shot, the remaining members of Night Raid are left to deal with his bodyguards. Tatsumi and Mine retreat as her job is done, and Tatsumi is not strong enough to face the bodyguards. While leaving, he learns why Mine fights against the Empire. One of the guards, however, escapes and attacks Mine, and Tatsumi latches onto the attacker, telling Mine to take the shot at close range. When she starts to object, he tells her he has faith in her. Mine kills the attacker and is about to accept Tatsumi before he hits her on the forehead, complaining that she nearly killed him too. The two return to the hideout, having grown a bit closer after the experience. Tatsumi is then paired with Akame in order to recover a Tegu from the serial killer Zanku the Beheader. He learns from Akame about the weapon relics known as Tegu. He's then tricked by Zanku, who creates an illusion of Sayo to lure Tatsumi to him, and he's separated from Akame in the process. While Tatsumi holds his ground against Zanku, the serial killer uses his Tegu Spectator to give him the upper hand, and he proves too much for Tatsumi. Akame, however, arrives just in time to save Tatsumi and defeats Zanku with her superior speed and will. The pair return with the Taegu to the hideout. Still unable to accept the death of his friends, Tatsumi is found at his friend's gravesite by Akame, who tells him to help her get dinner ready. He's then placed under Shield, who at first disliked him but is unable to recall why. She trains him by making him swim in heavy armor. He learns why she fights against the Empire and why she is in charge of training. Later, at a night raid meeting, Negenda has him try on Spectator, and the Taegu rejects him as a user, but not before Tatsumi uses its special ability to see Shield, Mine, and Akame in their underwear. He asks if they're a Taegu that can bring the dead back to life, and is deeply hurt when the other night raid members tell him that there is no such Taegu. Shield notices that there is a deeper reasoning to this and finds him at the graves of his friends, trying to hold back tears, stating that he had hoped that there was a Taegu able to bring the dead back. She hugs him and tells him that it's okay to cry. Shield comforts him, holding him in her arms. He thanked her for her kindness, and from that point the two become closer. He's finally able to let go of his friends and accept their deaths. Next, Tatsumi is placed with Leone and sent with her to the capital to complete a mission. He learns that she's very popular in her home district. The two are separated when a gang of men she had swindled out of money come after her. He then meets Seryu, who helps him find a bar he was ordered to find and reunites with Leone there. They enter the targeted building and witness a gang kill a drugged prostitute, a girl that Leone knew from the streets. Together they eliminate all the gangsters in the building. When he asks Leone what will happen to the girls, she replies that it isn't their problem, and then tells him that she knows a doctor who will look after the wounded girls if she asks him to. Tatsumi notes her kindness with a smile and she marks him as hers. Tatsumi wonders how the other team, Shield and Mine, are doing. Mine returns to the hideout, sharing the bad news of Shield's demise at the hands of Seryu Ubiquitous. Tatsumi and the rest of Night Raid are devastated and enraged. Tatsumi begins to leave to get revenge, but is stopped by Bulat, who tells him to stop acting childish. He's told to help Akame with cooking dinner while Mine recovers. Still in distress, Tatsumi wonders how Akame can stay calm and collected when one of her comrades has been killed. Tatsumi is sent with Leone to kill the Kobores brothers under orders from the Revolutionary Army HQ. The two complete their mission, slaughtering them, and as they're leaving, Tatsumi hears a child's voice calling for his father, who was a child of one of the brothers. Angry at himself, Tatsumi quickly leaves. The next morning, Tatsumi attempts to clean the bloodstain from his sword while thinking about how the boy only saw the Kobores brother as a good father, instead of the villain he actually was. Leone shows up and tells him that he could scrub the sword for his entire life, but the stain of blood would never fade. While she tries to cheer him up, he asks where she got her Taegu from and why she fights the Empire. While he finds that her reasons give him strength, he's still troubled. Later that night, as he goes to eat, he witnesses Akame preparing Shield's favorite food to offer her grave, and Tatsumi tells her that he admires the way she can remain so unaffected, and that losing a friend is something that he will have to get used to, like her. Akame grabs Tatsumi and tearfully tells him that she will never get used to losing her friends. Tatsumi realizes she was just as affected as he was and swears to her that he will never put her through the pain of losing him. He begins training with Akame with a new determination, unwilling to stop until he becomes strong enough to live up to his promise. He's interrupted by Bulat, who offers to train Tatsumi so he can become stronger. Tatsumi accepts and goes with Bulat to Mount Fake, where he and Bulat fight against tree beasts as part of his training. When the two return to the hideout, Night Raid has a meeting to discuss the Prime Minister, who has begun to order his political enemies to be killed, simultaneously using Night Raid as a scapegoat and blaming them for the assassinations. Negenda also notes that Esdeath has returned to the capital, having finished their campaign against the northern tribes. Lastly, Negenda notes that she has lost contact with the Night Raid away team and worries that they've been wiped out. Bulat and Tatsumi are then assigned the task of protecting another of the Prime Minister's political enemies, who is aboard the cruise ship Ryusen. Tatsumi and Bulat arrive at the luxury liner and board. Bulat uses Incarcio's stealth ability to scout out the area for potential attackers. The three beasts arrive at the same time and begin to search for their target. Tatsumi learns of Bulat's past and the reason why he fights the Empire. Bulat then must retreat to the interior of the ship as the time limit on Incarcio's stealth ability was reached. Bulat then leaves for the interior of the ship, leaving Tatsumi in charge of watching for the assassins. While he's gone, Tatsumi is weakened by the Taegu Scream's music, and the crew and most of the guests are put to sleep. Tatsumi is attacked by Daidara, whose Taegu gives him a major advantage, but Tatsumi is able to hold his own until Bulat shows up. Bulat tells Tatsumi to watch his battle closely and memorize his movements as the other members of the three beasts arrive. Bulat evades their attacks, leaping high into the air, knocking out Niao, and quickly uses Neon Tote to cut Daidara in half. He then begins to fight with Liver, his former superior from his days with the Empire. Still able to fight, Niao attempts to play Scream to give Liver an advantage, but is stopped by Tatsumi. While Bulat fights Liver, Tatsumi keeps Niao from interfering, but is unable to keep him occupied for the whole fight, and Niao defeats him, stopping Bulat from landing the killing blow on Liver. While Bulat ends up defeating Liver, he is poisoned and wounded. Tatsumi grabs Bulat and attempts to escape with him, but he's stopped by Niao, who uses his trump card, growing to full adult size. Bulat entrusts Tatsumi with his sword, saying that it's Incarcio's key and to use it. Tatsumi's will is so strong that Tegu's core evolves to match him. With his new power, Tatsumi kills Niao in one punch. Bulat succumbs due to his wounds and the deadly poison that Liver used in their fight. Tatsumi sobs as his friend and mentor passed away before him. He then takes the rest of the Taegu along with him back to the Night Raid hideout. Sometime after this event, Mine's injuries were completely healed, and she immediately began to train in order to become strong and avenge Shield. She finds both Akame and Leone helping Tatsumi and Lubbock train, sitting on their backs as they do push-ups. Tatsumi tells her that he's training so he can use Incursio more effectively and to be able to use its stealth ability for a longer period of time. Lubbock adds that he and Tatsumi are now the only men left in Night Raid, so he should better start getting serious. Najenda arrives to tell everyone that she's leaving for the Revolutionary Army HQ in order to hand over the Taegu that Tatsumi gathered. Before leaving, she places Akame in charge and offers Tatsumi some words of comfort, telling him that he is strong. Leone tells Tatsumi that Bulat had faith in Tatsumi's abilities and was sure that he would someday become extremely powerful, surpassing even his former mentor. Tatsumi heads to the capital hideout, which is disguised as a bookstore owned by Lubbock. The two head down the stairway to the secret room to find an intoxicated Leone already there. Lubbock informs him that Mine's face has been put up on wanted posters, meaning that they are now the only ones left who can walk through the streets of the capital by day. Tatsumi asks about the new police group formed called the Jaegers and their leader Esdeath. Lubbock tells him that a few years ago there was a group of savage tribes in the southwest of the empire that rose up in rebellion. Many thought that the empire would win due to the fact that the tribe only had 10,000 soldiers while the imperial military sent 120,000. However, the environment proved the tribe's greatest weapon, as the outskirts of the empire were a harsh environment, and all soldiers were born near the capital, with no experience of such unforgiving terrain. When all seemed lost, the empire sent General Najenda and Esdeath to reinforce the army. Esdeath froze a lake that had effectively cut off the army from the tribe's main village, and using the frozen surface as a bridge, the forces crossed over and defeated the tribe. Esdeath then took the captured leaders and forced them to watch while she had her forces perform mass rape and murder of the tribe's civilians to discourage rebellion in the future. Tatsumi, however, was confused by this and stated that the incident would only create future rebellion. Lubbock tells him that future rebellion is exactly what Esdeath wanted. Lubbock tells Tatsumi that the Empire is holding a tournament in which the winner will obtain a large cash reward, and that he should enter so he can send the money back to his home village. Esdeath oversees the tournament personally, which the Empire had staged in order to find a new user for the Taegu X days. Tatsumi enters the tournament under the guise of a blacksmith from the countryside and wins, showing his great skill, fearlessness, and confident smile, unknowingly fulfilling all of Esdeath's requirements and capturing her heart. Esdeath herself came down to meet Tatsumi and give him his reward. She places a collar around his neck to the shock of everyone present and drags him off before knocking him out to the Jaeger's headquarters. At the Jaeger's headquarters, Esdeath informs the rest of the group that Tatsumi will be a new member and her partner in love. Wave and Run, however, question why he's chained and wearing a collar, to which he replies that it's to show people that he is her lover. Esdeath is then convinced to take the collar off, and Tatsumi tells her that he has no interest in working for the Empire. Esdeath, however, shrugs this off and tells him that she will make him obedient in time. Seiryu then interrupts, telling them that it's a lot to take in, and Tatsumi feels a flash of anger but holds his emotions in line as to not blow his cover. A messenger arrives to tell Esdeath that they've located the hideout of a group of bandits. While the rest of the Jaeger attack the bandit camp, Esdeath and Tatsumi watch from a nearby cliff. Tatsumi thinks of escape, but Esdeath holds his hand, making it impossible. After the fight concludes, she tells him that he will sleep with her in her room. Tatsumi decides he will try to persuade Esdeath to side with him in the Revolutionary Army. However, this fails as she insists on serving the Empire. Esdeath sternly retorts that it is she who will change and control him and not vice versa, and uses him as a human pillow for the rest of the night, making him so nervous that he couldn't sleep. In the morning, Wave notices that he must have had a rough night, and Tatsumi tells him that he was so nervous that he couldn't rest. He notices Kurome eating her candy and is reminded of Akame. He tells her of how she looks similar to the girl in the wanted posters. She explains that the two are sisters and vows that she will kill her. Tatsumi, Esdeath, Wave, and Kurome then head to Mount Fake to hunt danger beasts, and Wave and Tatsumi are paired up. While walking along a mountain path, Tatsumi silently remembers the time spent with Bulat on this very mountain. Wave tells Tatsumi that they have a lot in common and seem to deal with the same type of comrades. The two then enter a group of several tree beasts and begin to fight them. Using the confusion of battle, Tatsumi manages to activate Incursio and slips away. After dispatching the last of the tree beasts, Wave notices Tatsumi's absence and fearfully imagines the punishment in store for him if Esdeath finds out he let Tatsumi escape. Wave activates Grand Chariot and begins to search for Tatsumi. The two encounter each other but are both unable to recognize the other due to the armored Taegu. Wave recognizes Incursio as a Taegu in the possession of Night Raid and attacks. Tatsumi is unwilling to fight Wave and instead focuses on attempting to escape. Wave taunts Tatsumi, telling him that he's heard of Night Raid and that they are villains who murder innocent people, which Tatsumi angrily denies. Wave attacks Tatsumi, sending him flying into a river. Tatsumi uses this chance to activate Incursio's stealth ability, fooling Wave into thinking that he was floating downriver to escape while he was actually on the river's bank. Tatsumi encounters a danger beast but is too wounded to fight back, but he's saved by Akame, who tells him she waited at the city's main gates and followed him secretly after he left. The two become close, but are interrupted by Lubbock, who notes that his death wouldn't have been so bad as he would have been the only man left. Akame, however, notifies Tatsumi that he was actually very worried. Tatsumi later reports everything he learned about the Jaegers. He tells the rest of Night Raid that the Jaegers match them skill for skill and have similar numbers. He is also very worried about Esdeath, as she is very powerful, with the element of surprise with her, as well as the fact that they have no idea what the limitations of her power is. Akame, however, reassures everyone that they will kill her. With this, the Night Raid celebrate his return. Unbeknownst to Tatsumi, however, Dr. Stylish has tracked him down to the Night Raid hideout. Dr. Stylish uses his own personal army, Team Stylish, to attack the Night Raid hideout. During the attack, Tatsumi busts out and attacks the infantry head-on, decimating it in the process. He notes that the soldiers he's fighting belong to Dr. Stylish and that he must be working alone, but then he encounters Kaku. Upon seeing that he has Shields Tegu, X-Days, he becomes deeply angered, and instead of fighting Kaku, he attempts to retrieve the Tegu, becoming injured as a result of him doing so. Mine arrives and kills Kaku, finally bringing Shields Tegu back to where it belongs. He's joined by an injured and furious Leone, who saves Mine and kills Truma. Najenda soon arrives and the rest of Night Raid escape from the headquarters, but they're however afflicted by a poisonous gas that renders them immobile, with only Tatsumi being able to fight. Just as everyone is in trouble, Susanoo comes in to help out. After Stylish injects himself with a drug that transforms him into a danger beast, he helps Akame get close to Stylish on the danger beast's head, where she kills him. He stands with the rest of Night Raid as Stylish lays dead on the ground. Tatsumi and the rest of Night Raid relocated from their base to an unexplored area of the Empire filled with danger beasts to keep low from the eyes of Jaegers. Tatsumi participates in a danger beast hunt with Leone, who comments about how strong Tatsumi has become, due to being able to summon Incursio's auxiliary spear. Upon their return to the capital, they receive reports of a new kind of danger beast. Although they admit that in some way this is helping the Empire, Tatsumi declares that above all they fight for the people, so he'd like to destroy the danger beasts as soon as possible. On a patrol with Lubbock, Tatsumi decides that it would be better to survey the area on top of a nearby mountain. Once there, he's nearly attacked by Esdeath, who is flying overhead. She stops her attack, but the two of them are attacked by several of the new danger beasts, which were by then revealed to be modified humans made by Dr. Stylish. Esdeath comments on how it must be fate for them to meet again. The two of them are attacked by a hooded enemy who uses his Tegu to teleport them. They arrive on an inhabited island. Tatsumi believes that they are under an illusion and asks Esdeath to hurt him to show whether it's an illusion or not. She responds by kissing him and disproves the fact that they are under an illusion. Esdeath creates an ice pillar to attain a higher vantage point to see. They're attacked by two colossal danger beasts, similar to Dr. Stylish's danger beast form. Tatsumi kills one by using an ice pillar that Esdeath creates to jump onto the area near the weak point of the danger beast. Esdeath kills the other one by crushing it with a massive ice hammer. Esdeath determines that they're on an island southeast of the Empire. They decide that there's no use panicking and make preparations to stay. By the end of the day, Esdeath mentions and finds a mark in the sand related to the power that sent them here. Deducing that it must open again at some point, they wait for it to open. Waiting for the mark to allow them back to the Empire, Tatsumi tells Esdeath about how he learned both his swordsmanship and blacksmithing skills from a retired soldier that lived in his village. In turn, Esdeath tells Tatsumi about how she was the sole survivor of a danger beast hunting clan, and how she became bored with danger beasts, she joined the army, becoming a general and consuming the ice demon's blood Tegu to give her ice manipulation powers. Tatsumi realizes that it is folly to try and recruit her to the revolutionary army due to her sadistic ego. At this point, Esdeath reveals her intention to find a danger beast to be able to ride on. Tatsumi spots one, and while Esdeath is distracted with catching the beast, the portal opens again. Tatsumi enters the portal, but not before he tells Esdeath about it. On the other side, he seemingly disappears using Incursio's invisibility skill. He mentions that they'll meet again, but as enemies. Tatsumi and the rest of the Night Raid are told by Najenda that the Revolutionary Army will make its move in a multi-direction attack on the Empire. Night Raid receives an order to kill Bolek, a key member from the religious group Path of Peace, due to his involvement as a spy for the Empire, which threatens to suppress an uprising by the Path of Peace following, which is to become one of the attacks of the Revolutionary Army. Knowing that the Jaegers will continue to chase them as they head for Kyokroch, they decide to spread misinformation that they're headed in two different directions. They successfully manage to split the Jaegers into two halves, with Bulls, Kurome, and Wave in one, and Esdeath, Run, and Seryu in the other. Tatsumi and all of Night Raid ambush Kurome's group. Due to a surprise attack, they manage to send Wave flying from the battlefield. Kurome, however, summons her 8 corpse dolls to engage with Night Raid, including the super high-class danger beast Destigul. As they engage the enemy, each member of Night Raid is forced to split up to deal with the corpse dolls. Tatsumi is forced to defeat 8 Man, who is backed up by Hentar, once a survivor from the Ban tribes. He decides that fighting the two of them is unfavorable and manages to split them up whilst Chelsea destroys Hentar. She leaves Tatsumi to destroy 8-Man, and he succeeds in knocking 8-Man up the rock face to the place where Kurome resides. In a flurry of devastating punches and a final blow to the head, 8-Man's head is crushed and 8-Man is left incapacitated. Tatsumi prepares to fight Natala, but several interruptions, including interference from Susanoo, stop the fight. At this point, a self-destruct explosion occurs from Boar's Rubicant, forcing Kurome to retreat and the battle ends, but not before Chelsea kills Bowles while in disguise. Tatsumi groups with the rest of Night Raid and is astounded when he learns that Leone's arm can be reattached. It was cut off by Kurome in the previous battle. He's told that Chelsea went after Kurome, and he chases her to the nearest town only to find that Chelsea had been killed and her head was on top of a pole in the town. That night, he dreams of fallen Night Raid members, Shiel, Bulat, and Chelsea. He expresses regret that he wasn't able to spend more time with them, but resolves himself the next day to continue the mission. Night Raid arrive in Kyokroch. They set out surveying the area, as they know that it will not be easy to kill Bullock due to the Jaeger's interference. They're also staked up by members of the Rakasha demons. Whilst on a mission with Mine, Tatsumi is attacked by Seryu of the Jaegers and a member of the Rakasha demons. They split up, with Tatsumi handling the Rakasha demon and leaving Mine to handle Seryu. Tatsumi moves the fight to a nearby ruin. Unable to connect a clean hit on the Rakasha demon, Tatsumi decides to bring down the entire ruin on his assailant. He leaves the rubble unharmed, and his assailant is unable to continue the fight with Tatsumi. Tatsumi rushes to Mine's aid, saving her from the self-destruct bomb planted in Seryu's head should she ever be about to be killed. He declares that he was too weak to save Bulat, too late to save Chelsea, but just in time to save Mine. After several weeks of rest and preparation, Night Raid decide to assassinate Bullock. Night Raid is split into two groups, one consisting of Akame, Mine, and Lubbock, and the other with Najenda, Tatsumi, Leone, and Susanoo. The former group is charged with sneaking with an air manta and striking from behind, whilst the latter group is to serve as a distraction for Esdeath and the Jaegers. The distraction group find Bullock, Esdeath, and Kurome in a cathedral-like area. They begin to fight Esdeath, whilst Tatsumi uses Incursio's ability to go invisible in order to find an opportunity to kill Bullock in the fighting. However, Esdeath quickly defeats the members of Night Raid and begins to torture Leone. Unable to handle the torture of his friends, Tatsumi goes out of his invisible state and strikes at Esdeath, but is quickly defeated. At that point, Najenda is forced to use Susanoo's trump card a second time in order to kill Bullock quickly. With his increased abilities, he gets close to killing him, but at the last moment, Esdeath uses her trump card to freeze time and stop Susanoo, dicing him to pieces. Esdeath is curious as to who is underneath Incursio's armor and attempts to remove it. However, it's at this time when the other group arrives and is able to strike Bullock. Tatsumi forces himself to hold back Esdeath for a moment, which is just enough time for Akame to kill Bullock. Night Raid is forced to flee, and Agenda is forced to use Susanoo's trump card a third time to hold back Esdeath. Night Raid flee with their mission complete, but at the cost of Susanoo, who dies holding back Esdeath. As the revolution begins, Night Raid takes a less direct route to their base in order to fool pursuers and to heal from injuries sustained in the previous mission. Mine and Tatsumi are sent off to collect food for Night Raid as they camp. Mine, whose feelings have grown for Tatsumi, attempts to confess to him, but he misunderstands. Mine is forced to kiss him to get him to realize her feelings toward him. They agree to go out together and declare their relationship to the rest of Night Raid. A new group sent to aid security in the capital, Wild Hunt, puts the capital in the grip of fear and terror. After several requests from the public and in addition orders from the Revolutionary Army, Night Raid sets out to exterminate them. When we next see Night Raid, they interfere in a battle between Jaeger members Run and Kurome and two members of Wild Hunt, Cosmina and Enshin. Tatsumi, using his spear, slams into the ground, sending large amounts of rock at Enshin, which distracts Enshin enough to catch him off guard to Akame's attack, leaving him dead. As the other member of Wild Hunt, Cosmina, is also dead, Night Raid turned to fight Kurome and Run. However, with the last of his strength, Run attacks them, whose attack is blocked by Tatsumi. The Jaegers flee the scene. Sometime later, Tatsumi and Lubbock get caught in a trap by Sura, who teleports them into the palace. Despite the disadvantageous situation, Tatsumi attempts to control the situation with the priority to flee. He tactically runs to an empty area, using his trump card of invisibility, and deals a damaging kick to Sura, Dorothea, and Suzuka, and then produces a smokescreen to avoid Izu. However, as he leaps to get away, he's stopped by Esdeath and Budo, leading to their capture. Tatsumi wakes up in a prison cell, greeted by Suzuka and Dorothea, who aim to make him their plaything and disgrace him. Dorothea claims she didn't have any sexual desires until she bit him earlier. Esdeath then enters, and angered by this scene, she slams Suzuka's face into the wall and threatens the two to never lay a finger on him. Tatsumi is then embraced by Esdeath, but only to be displeased. He states that he'll never join her and announces that he's in love and in a relationship already, much to her surprise. Still clutching to his resolve, Tatsumi rejects to eat food made by Esdeath in the offer to become her subordinate or risk public execution. Once he hears about Lubbock being dead, the persuasion is futile and he's willing to die rather than being a traitor to Night Raid. With the dawn of the day of the execution approaching, Esdeath is unable to convince him and become hers. She then comes to the conclusion, if Tatsumi will never be hers, she will at least deliver his death to prevent anyone else touching him. On the day of the execution, Tatsumi was tied to a cross with his executors, Esdeath and Budo, and questioning Budo on his view of the current empire. Esdeath prepares to impale Tatsumi, stating her understanding of the human body, and telling Tatsumi to try and survive as long as possible, though she never intended to kill him, just leave him in a near-death state. Seeing how the crowd seemed to enjoy how Tatsumi was about to be killed, Tatsumi accepted his death, but vowed that he wouldn't give them any satisfaction from it, and simply smile and laugh to show Night Raid's pride. Before Esdeath managed to pierce Tatsumi, the execution was crashed by Mine, who arrived to save Tatsumi, much to Tatsumi's horror, though he was touched by how far Mine was willing to go for him, something that Esdeath noticed. After successfully blasting Budo away from the Colosseum and holding her own against Esdeath's attacks, Tatsumi was amazed by how Mine showed that, despite the overwhelming odds, Mine showed no intention of dying, but rather getting Tatsumi out of there successfully. While fighting Esdeath, Mine used her genius sniping skills to free Tatsumi, though she grazed his sleeve a bit, which Tatsumi noticed that Mine still did it too close for comfort. Going immediately for Incursio, he grasped the hilt, but pulled back in pain as he noticed some small barbed wiring around the hilt. Hearing Esdeath tell him to come back and show her how strong he was, Tatsumi prepares to don Incursio. Remembering Lubbock's death, and determined to prevent that from happening to Mine, Tatsumi speaks to Incursio as he dons the armor, demanding more power from the Taiju to destroy the injustice of the Empire, leading to another evolution, regardless of how painful it might be for him. As Tatsumi emerges in the evolved Incursio form, he immediately charged at Esdeath to attack, and unlike before at the cathedral, he managed to fight more evenly with her, something that Esdeath noted with joy, as they were finally connecting for the first time. Tatsumi stated that Esdeath cannot be as lax now. With Tatsumi's new power, coupled with Mine's support, he forced Esdeath to use Mahapadma to prevent herself from being struck. However, much to her surprise, Tatsumi had managed to resist the technique thanks to Incursio having evolved to resist the cold, overcoming her trump card for a moment. The battle against Esdeath continues with Akame and Leone joining the fray, but soon Budo re-emerges undamaged despite the powerful blast from Pumpkin he received, and he's pissed off at Night Raid for disrupting the peace of the capital. After telling Akame and Leone about Lubbock's death, he and the others prepared to face both Budo and Esdeath. While facing them, Tatsumi noticed the extreme pain he was feeling, as if his body was being ripped to shreds. However, Tatsumi moved to block Budo's lightning attacks, and noted that this was the time to push his body beyond its limits. After blocking Budo's attack, Tatsumi and Leone teamed up to fight Budo, further angering the great general. He summoned lightning from the sky that struck them both, rendering them immobile. However, Tatsumi quickly recovered, as Incursio had evolved to resist lightning attacks, and began to fight Budo on his own. During their fight, Tatsumi said in his mind toward Budo that he once strove to be at the top of the ranks, and now that was what he was battling against with his body and soul. Shocking Budo with how he was able to fight on par with him, as despite his potential, Tatsumi's power-up almost seemed instant, which led Budo to deduce the possibility of Incursio fusing with Tatsumi. Attempting to finish him off, Budo summoned another lightning bolt to strike Tatsumi, but this time Tatsumi saw it coming, telling Budo he was told to always be aware of his surroundings, thinking of Bulat, who gave him that advice. Tatsumi then struck a powerful slash across Budo's back, injuring him greatly and making him collapse, before he got back up and his lightning grew wider due to Budo's anger. Esdeath, who'd been fighting both Akame and Mine at the time, intervened and battled Tatsumi, stating to Budo that Tatsumi was meant to be executed by her. As Budo unleashes his technique, Advent of the Thunder Emperor, Tatsumi looks at his comrades with worry before Esdeath attacked, reminding him that his enemy is not the lightning, but the ice, and told Tatsumi to give it everything he had. Though they fought fiercely, Esdeath commented that he still had yet to truly reach her, and she attempted to capture him in the ice, though Tatsumi dodged, much to her surprise. As Tatsumi was stated by Esdeath to be growing stronger even while battling, Tatsumi moved in to strike Esdeath from above. Tatsumi knew that, despite Esdeath telling him to give it everything he had, she was showing so much enjoyment, something he would exploit to give him an opening. When Esdeath blocked his attack, Tatsumi let go of his weapon and moved in to deliver a powerful punch, which was strong enough to break through her ice armor and strike her, knocking her away, though Tatsumi was surprised that he managed to actually do it. As Najenda arrived at the scene for their escape, Budo attempted to attack her, but Tatsumi blocked it, saying that if he let Najenda get hurt, he'd never be able to face Lubo again, tipping Najenda about Lubo's fate. When asked by Akame about Esdeath, he replied that he managed to strike a blow, which will buy them enough time to escape from her stunning Akame. Telling them to get on the danger beast, Tatsumi allowed himself to be the shield as he blocked more of Budo's attacks with his resistant armored body, though Budo knocked him away. As Budo overwhelmed Akame, Leone, and even blocked Mine's attack due to Pumpkin being pushed too far. Budo stated that there was no escape for them. Tatsumi got up and declared that they'd all get out of there alive. Budo noted that Tatsumi showed the same expression as that brat, which Tatsumi realized was Lubo, meaning that Lubo hadn't given up to his last breath, making Tatsumi determined not to give up either. As Tatsumi and Budo prepared to attack, Mine declared that she'd use her trump card, a bluff meant to catch Budo off guard for a moment, which worked, and allowed Tatsumi to deliver a devastating punch to Budo, sending him flying back. Getting Akame, Tatsumi headed for the danger beast to escape, but he soon collapsed as the poison he'd been given from the barbed wiring on Cursio's hilt had taken effect. While the poison was capable of killing a high-class danger beast instantly, Tatsumi, having donned Incursio almost immediately, had managed to cut the effects to a certain extent, though even that had reached his limit from the intense fighting. Tatsumi lost his consciousness after that, where Mine soon sacrificed herself to save them and kill Budo, using all her power that rendered her comatose and Pumpkin destroyed. Standing by her bedside, he told her about how she managed to help them succeed in making the revolution near success. He told her to rest for now and leave the fighting to him, in which he'd take her share in her place. As Mine was later being taken away and cared for until she wakes up, Tatsumi held her hand and then told her when the time came he wanted to marry her while declaring that he loved her. When Negenda asked how his body was, Tatsumi stated that he felt power welling up inside him, and recalled how he was examined by a doctor that was able to use the Perfector Tegu, and learned that Incursio had bonded with him, and thus he was becoming Incursio's dragon armor. Though he was warned that this was not a power-up, but rather it would break him, though unlike a poison, Tatsumi was gradually becoming stronger. Unlike Bulat, who had used Incursio in a proper way, Tatsumi had forced an evolution before he was ready. When the doctor mentioned the story of how Incursio couldn't have fought the two strongest in the Empire, Tatsumi stated that he could endure any pain as long as he could have power, and this was the cost, as he would grow stronger but would die soon, probably 10 years or less. He did note that if Tatsumi continued to train and build up strength, he might be able to use Incursio without overdoing it. But if Tatsumi continued to use Incursio as he was now, he would be devoured and die from it, and pointed out how the symptoms already appeared in Tatsumi's right eye. Finally, the doctor stated that he had gone 3 to 4 more times than his limit. Tatsumi remained determined to keep fighting, and although Negenda wanted to remove Tatsumi from further combat, she couldn't, as they had no idea what Esteth's trump card would be now, and they needed Incursio, who had adapted to her frozen atmosphere. Negenda and Tatsumi spoke about the Revolution Army's progress, and how they couldn't afford to lower their guard as they were sure that the Prime Minister had an ace up his sleeve, added with Esteth's unparalleled strength. Noting how Esteth would be fighting with full enjoyment, Tatsumi stated that for as long as he knew her, he hid his identity from her, and that Esteth was persistent in trying to take Tatsumi, but had a feeling that Esteth wouldn't hold back anymore. He declared he would fight with all of his might to defeat her, and added that he would fight Lubbock's part as well, though Negenda warned him not to beat himself up over it, as Night Raid was all for one and one for all. After a briefing with Negenda with the Revolution's armed forces, Tatsumi, along with the rest of Night Raid, set out to deal with the remnants of the Wild Hunt. They'd been last spotted raiding various Revolution Army bases with the newly recreated Cosmina, just as Dorothea and the others were prepping to raid another base to feed her pet creation. Akame and the rest of Night Raid swooped in, the former dealing what seemed to be a death blow to the homunculus, but as she rises back up again after having shed her Philosopher's Stone, Tatsumi stands firm as he takes on the monstrosity, remembering that he could only use his Tegu 4 more times before Tyrant consumed him, but shook off his insecurity while thinking of Mine and charged at the enemy fearlessly. After Dorothea was finished dispatching Leone, Cosmina had come crashing in just as she was contemplating how she was doing against him. After lopping off her limb and landing some critical blows against the creature, she protrudes a slew of tendrils to attack. After blocking most of the barrage, a hidden coil springs up from the ground, jabbing through Incursio's shin guard. As poison is funneled into his body, he reveals his immunity to said toxins by tackling Cosmina with as much ferocity as ever. The alchemist, suspecting that Tatsumi's merging with his Tegu enabled him resilience against the contaminants after having adapted to survive the Prime Minister's cowardly ploy during his execution. As Leone and Akame finish up with their respective opponents, Tatsumi deals the killing blow against the mutated Cosmina, causing her creator to feign collapse at the crumbling of her ambitions, only to be crushed flat under a rock by Leone soon after. After having completed their mission, Leone and Akame stand outside of Tatsumi's room only to find he's not in. Meanwhile, outside Night Raid's base, Tatsumi sits alone in a cave, groaning and agonizing in isolation due to his second use of the evolved Incursio. After Leone and Akame find him through tracking his scent, only to find that half of his face is transformed to reflect Tyrant's own visage, not wanting to concern the others over his pains, Tatsumi tried his best to conceal his problems, only for the two to gently embrace him, reassuring that they'll help him through his turmoil. Back at the base, Tatsumi shows more control over his transformations, now being able to revert back to a more human appearance at will. When the commander comes in to debrief Akame on a new mission, she also recommends he and Leone take a breather. After Akame had successfully completed her hit list assignment and was told that Tatsumi was resting up after feelings of exhaustion rose up within him. After the Empire assassination squads had been dealt with, Tatsumi and what remained of Night Raid sit down and enjoy a bite to eat. The former laments not being much use, seeing as the rest of the crew are busting their butts doing all the heavy work while he's stuck on the benches. The rest, however, comment that he's not to engage in any combat until the apex of the war, Negenda promising to work him but good when the time comes. Leone following suit by glomping onto him soon after. Noticing a somber Akame leaving the dinner table, Tatsumi notes her unusual quietness, but both ladies are unsurprised seeing as she'll be dealing with her little sister soon. As per the agreement when Akame initially joined up with the Revolutionary Army, Tatsumi learns that in order to serve under them, she had been given leeway on approaching regarding her wayward sibling, and that when the time had come, she, Akame herself, and no one else would interfere with her settling things with her. Leone affirms her desire to help her comrade meet her own goals, and when it comes to that, with an agenda going on to say that even if Kurome is spared and the revolution being over by then, the army who originally marked her for termination will seek all hostilities toward her and permit Akame to watch over her, and that the elder of the two had been working rather diligently for so long in order to have these requests met. Having come to terms with Akame's designs and fully considering the possibilities of Kurome rejecting her proposal, leading the two to fight it out to the death, without getting either sides of the conflict involved in the other to make it just between the two of them, Tatsumi confesses that he shares the same mindset as Leone in supporting whatever decision Akame comes to. An agenda noting Tatsumi's more calm demeanor compared to way back when. As Akame sits outside under an oak tree looking up at the starless sky, Tatsumi comes up to her wondering if she should be asleep by now or not. His hostess admits she's too restless at the moment. Tatsumi states that he's coming with her to oversee the battle between sisters, and while Akame rebukes this, stating that this is between family, he retorts that because she's his friend and that this is her problem, he will come as an impartial observer. Neither as a member of Night Raid nor an emissary of the rebel army, just standing guard as to keep anyone from interfering with their business. Akame notes that their boss said that he shouldn't be fighting now until the apex of the war itself. But he states that while she's only worried about his state of being from when he last equipped Incursio, that he'd happily give up another usage if it's for a comrade in arms, stating he can only use it 4 more times before he's done in. Stating that he was shocked that they left him behind the last time when the call to arms was sounded, and that this was his way of making amends for his inaction. He also mentioned that he had no intention of dying, seeing as he has to go back to Mai and assuming they win the war, but could not stand living with himself if something were to happen to a friend while he was resting. Akame thanks him for his kindness and determination, sharing with him that her Tegu Murasame has a hidden trump card that she's unable to use due to it requiring she cast aside her humanity and become a vicious man-slaying demon. Asking him as his friend if she should succumb to the demon within this using the hidden aspect of her weapon, the Night Raid would end her on the spot, stating it would be an honor to have him end her before she becomes a ravenous butcher. Impressed by this statement, Tatsumi goes on to request from Akame that should Incursio consume him and he become Tyrant's new body, that she'd be there to put him down as well, saying that for him too it would be an honor to die at the hands of a comrade. Knowing full well what that means, Tatsumi states his past self would denote such a request as cowardly, feeling that Akame would say that you have mine to go back to, plus the fact that he promised her that he would survive until the end of it all. But Tatsumi cuffs such understanding by stating Akame is selfishly asking her dear friend to end her should she end up crossing the event horizon. Akame can only laugh as Tatsumi says that the best they can do is give it all they've got in the end. As the time of the sisters' fateful duel came upon them, both he and Leone stood by on the sidelines as the two sisters exchanged friendly commerce of the old days. Meanwhile, when the battle between the two intensifies, Wave manages to close in on their location, forcing Tatsumi to forfeit one of his Tegu's uses in order to repel boarders after he had tried to intervene. As Wave finally did get past his defense, Tatsumi showed up as the interloper managed to dissuade the fighting, offering to take himself and Kurome out of the Revolutionary War after having admitted his love for said teammate, just as Leone comes in after checking the surrounding area for more insurgents. This causes Kurome to mentally break down due to her conflicting natures of not wanting to fight her sister and her loyalties to a corrupt empire that ruined her life. To sever such anointments tying her down, the remnants of Night Raid witness as the former Jaeger smashes her Yatsufusa, carrying her off to unknown territory, taking themselves out of the conflict off the Jaegers. Afterwards, Tatsumi shows further signs of degradation due to Incursio's influence once he defused his weapon, a moment to which Akame laments due to her feeling responsible. But they all cheer up after Leone mentions how Wave single-handedly prevented the deathly battle between siblings and removed 2 Jaegers from the equation, saving countless lives. When the time for the assault on the Empire arrived, Tatsumi would be on the front line battling Esdeath's formidable ice cavalry. Soon, Esdeath herself joins the battle, seeking to crush the Revolutionary Army's commander, only to be halted by Tatsumi. Despite being a bit winded during their brief one-on-one battle, Tatsumi, while getting stronger, fought a now serious Esdeath to a standstill until the Empire signaled her to retreat. Upon seeing the Empire's trump card, Shikotaser, on the field, Tatsumi wasted no time rushing to confront the young Emperor. Due to the Emperor being confused and inexperienced with the ultimate Tegu, Tatsumi easily dodged its assault and landed a counterattack, giving him, as well as the Revolutionary Army, confidence that he could prevail. Once Shikotaser's trump card Purge mode had been activated, the Emperor seemed to lose his remaining sanity and began firing indiscriminately. Witnessing the destruction, Tatsumi attempted to get the Mad Emperor to understand what he was doing, only to be met with resistance. Tatsumi would continue to bounce between being defensive and offensive until a stray missile headed towards civilians prompted him to jump in between the two. By saving the civilians, Tatsumi was left open for incoming attacks. The Emperor then pierced Tatsumi with a blade extending from the ultimate Tegu and subsequently punched into the ground. With Incursio smashed and nearing death, Tatsumi saw an image of Mine after apologizing and saying he'd return to her, when suddenly he's healed and Incursio is fixed. Although shocked at first, he realizes what has occurred, and Incursio sprouts a pair of dragon wings, declaring he'll stop the Emperor no matter the cost. Before Shikotazer could prepare to attack again, Wave arrived on the scene with the intention of evacuating civilians, and because he owed Tatsumi a debt. Despite his team up with Wave, Tatsumi determined that he needed more power to defeat his foe, and thus he forced Incursio to evolve once more. After obtaining more power, Tatsumi was able to force the Emperor to go on the defense, and together with Wave, they were able to heavily damage Shikotazer's armor. Once Wave leaves to help civilians, Tatsumi is able to give his full attention, where he once again tries to have the Emperor see the destruction he's causing, only to be met with resistance once more. Recalling Susanoo's advice, Tatsumi searches for and locates the weakened area within Shikotazer's armor. The Emperor calls for aid, prompting Esdeath's appearance, which worries Tatsumi because their team-up would ruin his gained momentum. Akame arrives and holds the general at bay while Tatsumi focuses on Shikotazer. Upon asking for more power, Tatsumi feels his consciousness slipping again, and with some encouragement from an imagined Bulat, Tatsumi is able to regain his consciousness and Incursio evolves one final time. With his new power, Tatsumi is able to plow through Shikotazer's blasts, its weakened armor, and right through its body to finally destroy the Tegu and end the Empire's reign after more than 1,000 years. Immediately after destroying the ultimate Tegu, Tatsumi is overcome by Tyrant's influence and restrained. The revolutionary doctor concludes that upon receiving a fatal wound, Incursio possessed Tatsumi only for his burning passion to keep him in check. Tatsumi escapes his restraints and heads for Esdeath, where Akame begs him to fall back, only for Tatsumi to respond by saying Mine must be cold and that he wants to be of some use before he's completely overtaken by Tyrant. Tatsumi smashes through several of Esdeath's attacks and is later wounded by her. Before he could attack Akame, who had rushed to his aid, Tatsumi was able to stop himself and begged Akame to kill him before his consciousness completely faded. He also reminded Akame about her promise to kill him should he turn into a dragon. Akame then stabs him with Murasame, and its curse markings spread all over his body and he collapses. After Akame mortally wounds Esdeath, Tatsumi is seen flying towards them. After meeting up with Akame and Negenda, it's explained that Akame only targeted and killed the tyrant but saved Tatsumi. Happy that he is still alive even as a dragon, Tatsumi thanks Akame for helping him keep the promise he made to her to survive. Tatsumi's transformation becomes one of Akame's motivations to search for a way to return him to human form. Akame made herself numerous referrals during her interactions with the natives of Wakoku during her search to find a way to return him back to human. Did you enjoy our video? Be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.